Okay, let's unpack this. If you're an IT leader, you know the challenge. How do you consistently get the right skills and capacity onto the right projects? Especially, in a world where tech is changing at lightning speed.
Right.
Resourcing isn't just an operational task anymore. It feels much more like a strategic puzzle.
Absolutely. It really is. And that makes understanding different sourcing models more critical than ever.
Yeah?
The days of relying solely on internal hires for every single need are, well, they're pretty much behind us. Leaders today need to be adept at leveraging external resources effectively.
To drive innovation, manage costs, stay agile.
Exactly. You need that flexibility.
Precisely. And that brings us to the heart of this deep dive, navigating that strategic fork in the road between staff augmentation and project-based outsourcing.
Two very common but very different approaches.
Right. And to guide our exploration today, we're using a really insightful source, a blog post from May 8, 2025, written by Jay Tillotson.
Jay.
Yeah. He's an executive with, over 25 years deep in IT strategy, cloud transformation operations. And he wrote this piece specifically for decision makers like you, grappling with these exact choices.
Yeah, his experience gives him a unique vantage point. He's
Yeah.
seen how these models play out over the long term in all sorts of organizations.
Mm-hmm.
And he emphasizes that understanding their nuances as well, it's key to unlocking their strategic potential.
So our mission today, using Jay's post as our map, is to truly unpack these two core approaches. We'll dig into their fundamental differences, highlight the situations where each one really shines, and critically examine their potential pitfalls, too.
Okay.
By the end, you should have a much clearer picture of which model, or perhaps even a combination, aligns best with your specific business objectives.
We're looking to turn what often feels like a tactical decision into a clear strategic advantage.
Exactly. All right, let's jump in. Jay starts by laying out the fundamental definitions. What does he actually mean by staff augmentation?
Okay, so Jay defines staff augmentation, or SA, as bringing external professionals to work alongside your existing internal teams on a temporary basis.
Right.
The key here is that these individuals integrate into your team, they follow your processes, and critically, they work under your management.
Okay, so they're kind of temporary extensions of your own staff.
What is a good way to put it? Yeah. They're brought in to fill specific roles or skill gaps quickly. They become part of your day-to-day operation for a defined period.
Okay, so they're not employees, but they feel like they're part of your team, managed directly by you. Makes sense.
Exactly. Now, project-based outsourcing, or PBO, that's framed quite differently. Here, you're contracting an external provider to take on and deliver an entire project from start to finish.
The whole thing.
The whole thing. You specify the desired outcome, the requirements, the deliverables, but the vendor is responsible for managing the team, the tools, the methodology, the whole execution process.
So with PBO, it's less about adding individuals to your team and more about handing over a whole problem or initiative for someone else to solve.
Yeah, you're buying the result,
Oh.
essentially.
Right, not the time of individual people.
That's the core distinction. It's about what you're procuring and who holds the reins for execution.
Okay. Jay's post has this great key differences at a glance section.
Yeah.
It really clarifies just how divergent these two models are in practice. Let's maybe walk through some of those key contrasts he highlights.
Absolutely. Yeah, that table's helpful. One of the most significant is control.
Okay.
With staff augmentation, because the external staff are integrated into your team and under your management, you retain high direct control over their daily activities and, the project direction.
Makes sense. You're the boss.
Pretty much. With PBO, you have much lower direct control over the day-to-day work. Your interaction is typically at the project management level with the vendor, focusing on progress, milestones, that sort of thing.
Right. So that directly impacts the management structure then.
Exactly. With SSA, your existing team leads or project managers are directing the work. With PBO, the vendor provides and manages their own project team and leadership.
Okay. What about flexibility? That seems like a big one.
Huge difference. SA is designed for flexibility and scalability. You can often ramp resources up or down relatively easily as project needs change.
You need more people, you bring them in. Fewer, you scale back.
Kind of. PBO, conversely, is based on a defined scope and team agreed upon upfront. Changing direction or scale mid-project, well, that can get complex and costly because of the contract.
Yeah, that fixed scope in PBO really limits its adaptability compared to SA.
Yeah.
How about integration into the team culture?
Well, Jay notes that staff augmentation requires direct integration with your internal teams and culture. I mean, the augmented staff work alongside your employees daily.
They're the trenches with your people.
Right. With PBO, the vendor team usually works more independently, often remotely, so there's less day-to-day cultural integration. Communication tends to be more structured, more formal, through reporting lines rather than, say, being embedded in your daily stand-ups.
Got it. Okay, let's talk money. The cost model. How does
Yeah.
that differ?
Jay explains that SA is typically billed based on the time worked by the external individuals, hourly or monthly rates per resource. You're paying for their capacity.
Paying for time.
Essentially, PBO is usually priced as a fixed cost for the entire project, or maybe tied to specific milestones being delivered. You're paying for a defined outcome, regardless of the exact hours the vendor team puts in.
That predictability of a fixed price in PBO,
Mm-hmm.
that seems like a major difference from paying for time in SA.
It absolutely is. It drives different behaviors and different risk profiles.
And what about getting started? How quickly can you get going?
Time to start is another key contrast. SA generally allows for much faster onboarding. You just need to find the right individuals and get them plugged into your processes.
Find the person, bring them on board.
Right. PBO requires a more significant upfront investment in time. You've got detailed scope definition, planning, negotiation, contract finalization, all before the vendor can really begin the work.
So if you need skills now, like yesterday, SA probably has an edge there.
Yeah, generally, yes. Finally, how does Jay view risk in these models?
Right, risk.
He suggests risk is often more directly manageable with staff augmentation because you have that day-to-day oversight and control. You can spot issues and hopefully mitigate them in real time.
You see things happening.
Exactly. With PBO, risk can sometimes be less visible because you have less insight into the vendor's internal execution process. You're relying more heavily on the vendor's ability to manage risks within their own black box, so to speak.
Interesting. So you're trusting their process more.
You are. It's fascinating how those foundational differences in control and cost really filter down through, well, every aspect of how you engage with these models.
Yeah, absolutely. So given all that, where does Jay Tillotson say staff augmentation is the right call? When should you lean that way?
Okay, Jay points to several scenarios where SA is particularly effective. He highlights needing to quickly scale your team or fill specific specialized skill gaps.
Like you suddenly need someone who knows that niche AI framework.
Exactly, or that specific cloud security practice he mentions. Things where hiring full-time just takes too long. SA lets you bring in that talent fast.
Right, tapping into those hard-to-find skills without the whole lengthy internal hiring cycle.
Precisely. It's also the preferred model when you need to maintain direct control over the project direction, the quality, the daily workflow.
If you want your hands on the wheel.
Right. If you have a strong internal project management structure and you want to keep the reins, SA fits that. And crucially, it's ideal for projects where requirements are likely to evolve.
Ah, so things
Yeah.
might change.
Yeah. Since you're managing the staff directly, you have the flexibility to pivot and adjust scope more easily than you would with a rigid PBO contract.
So if your project is more exploratory, maybe more agile, SA makes more sense.
That's the idea. He also notes it's useful when facing tight deadlines and needing to accelerate time to market because of that rapid onboarding capability we just discussed.
Get people in quickly to hit the date.
Yeah. And finally, it can be a way to test potential talent before committing to a full-time hire and maybe reduce some initial hiring risk as the provider handles the HR and payroll stuff.
Interesting. So speed, direct control, flexibility for change, access to rare skills. Those seem to be the main drivers for SA. What are the specific benefits Jay lists for this approach?
Okay, Jay lists several key benefits. There's the core flexibility and scalability, allowing you to adjust team size dynamically.
Covered that.
Access to specialized skills is a major one, instantly bringing in expertise that might be scarce internally. He also points to cost effectiveness, particularly in the short term, avoiding the overheads of full-time employees initially.
Initially being the key word there, maybe.
Potentially, yes. We'll
Yep.
get to that. Faster time to market comes from the rapid onboarding and reduced hiring risk because the administrative burden HR payroll is largely with the provider.
Okay, those sound pretty compelling.
Yeah.
But what are the downsides? Jay doesn't shy away from the drawbacks, does he?
No, he's quite clear there are significant considerations. One major challenge he points out is integration issues.
Right.
Getting external staff to fully gel with existing internal teams and the company culture can be difficult. It can potentially impact collaboration, team cohesion.
Yeah, they're technically part of your team, but they might not feel or act like it right away or ever sometimes.
Yeah, right. That takes effort. Another point he raises is potentially higher long-term costs.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah. While it might seem cheaper upfront than hiring, maintaining augmented staff for extended periods can become significantly more expensive than building out an internal team over time. You're paying a premium for that flexibility. And a crucial drawback, this one's big, is knowledge retention. When augmented staff finish their assignment, their accumulated project knowledge, well, it often walks out the door with them.
Oh, yeah, the knowledge drain.
Exactly. That can create potential support or maintenance gaps down the line unless you have really rigorous knowledge transfer processes in place.
That's a common pain point I've heard about. Losing that expertise can really hurt the organization's long-term capability, can it?
It absolutely can. And finally, he points to data security risks. Granting external parties access to internal systems and sensitive data that requires careful security protocols and, frankly, trust in the provider's vetting processes.
Okay, so that's staff augmentation, great for speed, flexibility, specific skills, but you got to watch out for integration, cost over time, knowledge loss, and security.
A fair summary.
Now let's pivot. If ALA is for adding temporary capacity and flexibility, when does Jay say project-based outsourcing is the recommended model? When should you go PBO?
PBO, according to Jay, is the ideal fit when you have a project with a clearly defined scope, timeline, and budget. This is really the opposite scenario from SA's evolving requirements.
Right.
If you know exactly what that final deliverable looks like, PBO becomes very attractive.
So think like building a specific internal tool with fixed features or implementing a known system with a pretty standard process.
Precisely. Well-defined boundaries. It's also the choice when you lack the necessary internal bandwidth or expertise to execute the entire project yourself.
You just don't have the people or the skills.
Right. The vendor brings the whole package, the team, the skills, the management to deliver that outcome. It's also recommended when you want to offload end-to-end project management.
Get it off your plate.
Exactly. To free up your internal teams to focus on core strategic activities or maybe just existing operations.
It's like saying, look, I need this result. I don't have the capacity or maybe the desire to manage all the details, so you take it.
That's exactly the mindset. And finally, if cost control via a fixed price arrangement is paramount, PBO offers that upfront predictability, which is often less certain with the time and materials model of SA.
Okay. Defined project, lack of internal resources or capacity, wanting to offload management, and needing cost predictability. Those are the PBO triggers. What are the specific benefits Jay sees in this approach?
Okay, Jay lists some key benefits here too. You gain access to domain experts providers who really specialize in delivering particular types of projects. They've often honed their processes for efficiency and quality in that specific domain.
They've done this exact thing before, probably many times.
Hopefully. As we discussed, cost predictability is a major advantage, locking in the budget up front. No big surprises, ideally. It can also lead to increased efficiency by allowing your internal team to remain focused on their primary responsibilities while the vendor handles the entire project lifecycle.
Yeah, freeing up your core team's bandwidth sounds really valuable. Don't distract them.
It absolutely is, and there's flexibility for one-off needs. Once the defined project is delivered and accepted, your engagement and financial commitment with that vendor typically conclude cleanly. There aren't the same ongoing relationship implications as with augmented staff.
Okay, clear benefits for the right kind of project. But like SA, PBO also has significant drawbacks. What does Jay highlight there?
The primary drawback, and it's a big one, is less control.
We touched on this.
Yeah. You are entrusting the vendor with the execution process. While you define the outcome, you have limited visibility into their day-to-day operations. That can sometimes lead to communication delays, slower course correction, maybe misalignment if it's not managed very carefully.
So you get the outcome, hopefully, but you lose that ability to constantly tweak things or see exactly how the sausage is being made, so to speak.
That's a good analogy.
Right.
Another significant drawback is rigid scope.
Because it's all defined up front in the contract?
Exactly. Because the contract is built around delivering a specific fixed outcome, any changes or deviations from the original plan after the project starts can be difficult, time-consuming, and probably expensive to implement. It just lacks that inherent adaptability of SA.
Yeah, scope creep becomes a much more formal, potentially painful change request process with PBO.
Absolutely.
Right.
And similar to SA, there can be knowledge transfer issues.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, the vendor team builds expertise throughout the project, sure, but ensuring that knowledge is effectively transferred back to your internal team for ongoing support, maintenance, future development, That can be challenging. It requires deliberate planning.
You need a good handover plan.
Definitely. And finally, there can be integration challenges, not just technical, but also cultural. The vendor's way of working might not align perfectly with your company's processes, standards, or communication styles. That can create friction, particularly during project handover or if ongoing collaboration is required after delivery.
Okay, so less control, scope rigidity, potential knowledge gaps, even with handover, and integration friction.
Mm.
Those seem like the key trade-offs with PBO.
Mm-hmm.
It's clear from everything Jay outlines that this isn't just a simple operational choice like which vendor form do I fill out. It's deeply strategic.
That's exactly the point Jay emphasizes in his section on strategic considerations for decision makers. He really urges leaders to think beyond just the immediate project requirement.
Go up a level.
Right. The first consideration he stresses is project scope and clarity. As we've seen, how well-defined and stable your project requirements are is just a fundamental determinant of which model is appropriate.
Yeah, if you know the destination and the route clearly, PBO might work. If you know the general direction but expect some twists and turns, SA seems more fitting.
Precisely put. Then there's your organization's preference for control and oversight.
How hands-on do you want to be?
Exactly. Do you have a leadership culture that needs to be hands-on with execution? That probably leans towards SA. Or are you comfortable delegating end-to-end delivery to a trusted partner? That leans towards PBO.
Cultural factors definitely play a role here too, not just process.
They absolutely do. Next is optimizing your cost structure. Are you prioritizing the flexibility and maybe transparency of paying for time and capacity, which is SA, or is the upfront certainty and predictability of a fixed price for a defined outcome, PBO, more important?
Depends on your budget constraints and risk tolerance, I guess.
For sure. And then speed and time to market. While both can deliver speed, SA's rapid onboarding might be better for those urgent skill gaps, whereas PBO could actually be faster for a well-defined project by bringing a pre-assembled, specialized team to bear immediately on the problem.
Interesting nuance there.
Yeah. And a critical point is talent and expertise. Both models provide access to skills you may lack internally, obviously.
That's why you're doing it.
Right. But Jay highlights that with SA, that expertise is embedded within your existing team. That offers opportunities for knowledge transfer, for osmosis, potentially building internal capability over time.
Your team learns from them.
Potentially, yes. With PBO, you leverage the vendor's expertise to get the job done, but that specific capability, well, it may not remain within your organization after the project completion.
That's a really significant difference. Are you just getting the job done, or are you also looking to maybe grow your own team skills in the process?
Exactly. It connects directly to your long-term talent strategy. Are you building or buying? And finally, he raises risk and security. How comfortable are you with the level of control you have over potential risks and data security?
We talked about that visibility difference.
Right. SA offers more direct control over the individuals accessing your systems. PBO requires higher trust in the vendor's internal security protocols and their risk management practices.
That framework really helps contextualize the decision beyond just, features and benefits. To help decision makers navigate this, Jay provides what he calls a decision framework, basically posing a series of questions.
Yes, he distills it into these actionable questions designed to guide you. He suggests asking things like, is the project scope fixed or is it likely to evolve? Your answer there is a primary filter.
Big one.
Huge. Then, do you need to retain control or are you comfortable delegating management?
And the questions about urgency and cost structure. Is speed to market a top priority? And are you optimizing for cost flexibility or predictability?
Right. And the final question really circles back to that talent point we just discussed. Do you want to build internal capabilities or simply get the job done?
Get the fish or learn how to fish.
Kind of, yeah. Jay suggests that by honestly answering these questions, you'll not only clarify which model SA or PBO is the likely best fit for your specific situation, but you might even identify situations where a hybrid approach, combining elements of both for different project phases or components, actually makes the most strategic sense.
A hybrid model that seems incredibly practical in complex environments. Not everything fits neatly into one box.
Very rarely does. Jay then culminates with what he labels the critical question for decision makers. What's that ultimate question he wants leaders to really ponder?
Okay, it's a big one.
He poses this powerful question. Are you choosing your sourcing model to solve today's problem, or are you strategically aligning it to build long-term capability and agility for your organization?
Wow, okay. That really elevates the discussion, doesn't it? It's not just about fixing an immediate resourcing issue, but about how that fix contributes to where you're actually heading as an organization.
Precisely. He argues that focusing only on the immediate problem risks making choices that, frankly, don't serve your future needs.
Short-term fix, long-term pain, potentially.
Could be. Jay notes that successful organizations don't just see SA as, like, filling a headcount gap. They use it strategically to embed expertise and increase organizational adaptability over time.
Using it to learn.
And they leverage PBO not just as a way to dump work, but as a focused tool for efficient delivery on well-defined strategic initiatives, freeing their core team for higher-value work that does build internal muscle.
So it's about intentionally selecting the model that actively helps you build the organization you need tomorrow, not just tackling today's tasks.
Yes, it's about ensuring your sourcing strategy is a lever for your long-term vision, not just a band down for immediate needs.
Okay, that feels like a complete journey through Jay Tillotson's insights here.
Yeah.
The core takeaway seems crystal clear. The decision between staff augmentation and project-based outsourcing is fundamentally strategic.
Absolutely. It's not just operational. It's about aligning your chosen approach with your overall business vision, your strategic goals, your desired level of organizational agility. It requires looking beyond the immediate project.
And there's no single right answer that applies everywhere. The best model is totally context dependent. It's driven by factors like, the project scope, your need for control, cost priorities, speed requirements, talent goals, risk tolerance,
All those things we discuss.
and whether you're trying to build internal capability or just deliver a result. And as Jay points out, sometimes the answer might even be a thoughtful blend, a hybrid.
The nuances truly matter. There's no silver bullet here.
Jay leaves us with a really powerful closing thought in his final paragraph that kind of encapsulates this strategic imperative. It really resonated.
Yeah, I liked it too. He writes, in a world where speed, innovation, and adaptability define success, your sourcing decisions are strategic levers, not just operational choices.
Strategic levers.
Don't just fill gaps, build bridges to your future. Whether you choose staff augmentation, project-based outsourcing, or a blend of both, make sure your model accelerates your vision, not just your next project. The right partnership today can be your competitive edge tomorrow.
Build bridges to your future. That phrase really sticks with you, doesn't it?
It does.
It's a challenge, really, to view every single resourcing decision through that strategic lens. Are you just plugging holes in the dam, or are you actively constructing the pathway to where you want your organization to actually be? That's definitely something to consider the next time you face one of these choices.